Hello chess fans, this is Rick from Chess to Impress with a new series. On Mondays I will post a video where the king plays an important role. On Tuesdays it's the queen, Wednesdays the rook, Thursdays the bishop, Friday the knight, Saturdays the pawn, and on Sunday I will post a new video in the viewers game series. It is Friday, the knight rules, and when I started this series I knew that there was only one game I could start with when it was the turn of the knight. We're going to look at a game of the great Bobby Fischer. It has gone down in history as Bobby's brilliancy, and it was played on the 18th of December 1963 in the USA Championships held in New York. It was round 3. Bobby was 20 years old and he played with the black pieces against Robert Byrne. Bobby was black, so let's look at the game from the black side. Byrne opened d4, knight f6 from Fischer, c4, g6, g3, c6, bishop g2, d5, and c takes d5. We have a sort of a hybrid between an exchange Slav, a Grunfeld, and a Schlechter Slav, where the bishop goes to g7. Fischer's comment at this moment was that queen b3 would have maintained more tension, but as said, c takes d5 was Byrne's choice. C takes d5, knight c3, bishop g7, e3. Both players are developing their pieces. Fischer castled, knight ge2, knight c6, Byrne castled, and both players played their b-pawn up the board. Fischer said at this moment it's hard for either side to introduce an imbalance into this essentially symmetrical variation. So far nothing spectacular is happening, but that will change very soon. Bishop a6 and bishop a3, and the chess writer Kirby in the South African Chess Quarterly wrote, after White's 11th move I should adjudicate his position as slightly superior, and at worst completely safe. To turn this into a mating position in 11 more moves is more witchcraft than chess. Let's see what Fischer did. He first played rook e8, queen d2. Both players have developed all their pieces. White has played very cautiously. Black already has fully equalized. And now Fischer goes for action with the move e7, e5. Fischer wrote that he was a bit worried about weakening his queen's pawn, the d5 pawn, but that he felt that the tremendous activity obtained by his minor pieces would permit White no time to exploit it. And Fischer was right. Byrne took on e5, knight takes, and rook fd1. And as Fischer said, add another to those melancholy case histories entitled The Wrong Rook. And Grandmaster John Nunn wrote, one can understand Byrne's desire to break the pin on the e2 knight, but this turns out to be less important than other considerations. Knight on e2 is now no longer pinned to the bishop on a6. But rook ad1 was the correct move, which maintains equality in the position. Byrne played the other rook and he could not foresee that this was a bad move. Knight d3, the knight infiltrates, protected by the bishop on a6, and Robert Wade wrote here, it's all systems go for the Fischer rocket. Queen c2 from Byrne. Now White threatens to take on d3 and win 2 pieces for the rook. But now the knight rules. Look at this move from Fischer. Knight takes f2, a piece sacrifice. And as Fischer writes, the key to Black's previous play, the complete justification for the sacrifice does not become apparent until White resigns. This is quite an incredible game. Byrne took the knight, knight g4 check, king stepped back, and knight takes e3. 2 pawns for the piece does Fischer have. And he's forking queen and rook. Byrne stepped aside with his queen, queen d2, and he wrote, as I sat pondering why Fischer would choose such a line because it was so obviously lost for black, there suddenly comes knight takes g2, another great knight move. Black's knights have knocked down all the protection around White's king. And as Robert Byrne wrote, this dazzling move came as the shocker. The culminating combination is of such depth that even at the very moment at which I resigned, both grandmasters who were commenting on the play for the spectators in a separate room believed I had a won game. Incredible. King takes g2 and d4. Fischer's knights are both gone, but they have done their job. The move d4 is opening up the long diagonal against white's king. Knight takes d4, there's nothing better, and bishop b7 check. As Fischer writes, the king is at black's mercy. King f1. Nothing can save white. He could have tried something like knight f3, but then queen takes d2, rook takes d2, and bishop takes c3. Wins material for black. Nothing saves white. As mentioned, king f1 was played, and we already have the last move of the game. Queen d7, and Robert Byrne resigned. As I mentioned, not everybody understood that Robert Byrne had resigned. Some thought that Fischer had resigned here. Why is this a resignable position? Well, let's first look at black's threat. Let's make a silly move for white to show the threat. Let's play rook ac1, just to show how black checkmates in 3 moves here. By queen h3 check, king g1, bishop takes d4 check, and the queen is overworked. Queen takes d4, the queen is no longer protecting g2, and queen g2 is checkmate. That is a forced variation. So after queen d7, you have to deal with that threat. But there is no satisfactory way to defend yourself with white, and that's why Byrne resigned. Fischer said it was a bitter disappointment that white resigned. He had hoped for queen f2, and that move looks to make sense. It takes the sting out of bishop takes d4, because then white can take back with the rook, and the queen can stay on the second rank. But also here, black wins, and Fischer had seen everything. Queen h3 check, king g1, and then a beautiful move, rook e1 check. What a move. Deflecting the rook, if you take with the rook, then bishop takes d4, and the queen is lost, and queen g2 checkmate is a threat. If you take on d4, then this is checkmate. The queen is no longer covering that square. If after rook e1 check you take with the queen, then again the queen is deflected off the second rank, and queen g2 is checkmate. There's really nothing else. After queen d7, black is winning in all variations. What a wonderful game from Bobby Fischer. Hope you enjoyed it. And that you enjoyed Fischer's beautiful knight maneuvers in this game. If you did, please give the video a thumbs up. Please subscribe to the Chess to Impress channel, and please leave a comment if you like the video and the series. It would be great if you could share it on social media by clicking the share button on YouTube. This is Rick for Chess to Impress. Thank you for watching.